The title of my homily today is Am I Right or Am I Right? The Right to Change Your Mind. And I begin with a quote by William Blake. The man who never alters his opinions is like standing water and breeds reptiles of the mind. And the quote brings to mind for me an image of a swamp where everything is stagnating and dying with no inlet or outlet for fresh water. And if our mind is a swamp and we have no inlet to let fresh ideas flow in, then we're stuck in the same opinions that we have been trained to believe by our upbringing or by society. Change your mind, change your unconscious habitual thoughts that drive every decision that we make. Our strongly held beliefs are often so ingrained that they become habits. How do we define a habit? Well, Jeremy Dean says in his book, Making Habits, Breaking Habits, that habits are repeated behaviors with little or no comprehension. If someone throws a ball at you, you catch it before you even realize what you've done. So it's that automatic reaction without being consciously aware of having done something. Have you ever found yourself on the way somewhere and realized you're on the way to a different destination? I found myself with the intention of driving to the bank, for example, but suddenly realized I'm on the route to the old Lotus Center at Dietz Street instead, which we actually moved out of almost a year ago or 10 months ago. It's habit, automatic routine, right? We've all done it. During this COVID pandemic, we have become conscious of habits, assumptions, and routines that no longer work for us, both personally and as a society. The last 2 years have been a time of huge change. And from the swamp, what came bubbling up from below the surface was a hard look at all the issues that divide us, like Black Lives Matter, a movement that helped us become aware of our own unconscious biases of how we treat people who are different from us. Police Lives Matter arose as an issue in an almost rebellious response. And instead of reaching for common ground in a place where we could understand each other, the idea began to polarize us even more. Even our allegiance to a political party has become pure habit. And oftentimes, when it's time to vote on an issue or candidate, the decision is already made for you by habit. We automatically pull the lever for the candidate of the party we belong to without consideration of the qualities of the candidate. Sometimes it's easier to stay entrenched in old belief systems that file people into categories and judge them by their category rather than who they are as a person. There is the source of all name calling. You're not me and don't have the same beliefs as me. Therefore, you are, insert derogatory name here, and we all do it. I still remember the time that Rush Limbaugh called me a feminazi on the air. I don't know him. And I had expressed my opinion in a letter to the Daily Star, and a friend from Oneonta called into a show and read my letter out loud on air. And a feminazi, for those who don't know, is a derogatory term for a female, if you remember this, who supports women's rights and supposedly believes women are superior to men or something like that. And, and I mention that not to be a victim, just to give an example, because, of course, people get called names every day and way much worse than feminazi. And which made me think that maybe name calling is one of those reptiles of the mind that William Blake referred to. The latest thing that came bubbling up from the swamp, of course, is whether or not to get the COVID shot and mask mandates. And people became so entrenched in their opinions and beliefs and took sides that the name calling started and people just couldn't hear each other anymore. Just a side note. The interesting thing is, every challenge is an opportunity, right? We like to think. What possible opportunity could come out of these challenging times? Well, this pandemic is being experienced by the whole world. And this is an opportunity for all the nations of the world to work together for the first time in the history of the world in a united way to find a solution that works for all of our world citizens with no one left out. Back to the topic at hand. Why is it so hard to change our mind? Even our political leaders are judged as failures if they change their opinion on something. Waffler! You're a waffler. It's so easy for us to get stuck in our own point of view about contentious issues and stay in the swamp water. Excuse me. It's a part of being human to want to always be right. It's an ego response. If somebody questions our beliefs, we get defensive and fight back. We want to defend our beliefs and stand up for ourselves, naturally. How many of you remember Gilda Radner, the comedian from Saturday Night Live? And her famous character was Rosanna, right? And one of her regular characters was Emily Litella, who delivered the editorial reply on Weekend Update. And in one of my favorite ones, my husband and I were just discussing, she expresses her opinion about a controversial issue, parents objecting to violins on TV. And she wonders, what's all the big fuss about violins on television? And in her opinion, there should be violins on TV. And if they wait until after 10 p.m. to show the violins, then all the babies will be in bed and miss all the music and culture they should be exposed to. And eventually, Chevy Chase taps her on the shoulder and whispers, the story was about violence on TV, not violins on TV. She waits a minute, and then she looks at the camera and she says, say it with me, never mind. Wouldn't it be so easy to change your mind for everybody if we all did it like that? Have you ever been in a meeting and adamantly disagreed with a decision, but after you were given more information, you were swayed to change your mind? That's kind of the way it works, right? That's when we're practicing active listening and respect and trust for our coworkers or our family members. If it's a family meeting, we have created an atmosphere of unity where a decision could then all could agree to. An unwillingness to listen to another's point of view creates a roadblock that dams up that standing water, and all forward progress around the issue stops. Well, what can we do if we have a dear friend or a relative who has adopted a belief that hits a hot button for us? One of these contentious issues where people are taking sides. Well, many people would say, and I know I was carefully taught, probably like many of you, close the conversation and walk away. Don't ruffle feathers. Avoid controversy. And to make it easier, unfriend that person on Facebook. It's just too upsetting, right? And my mother always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. And I notice that has become one of those unconscious habits that runs my behavior, avoiding confrontation. But when we clam up, we too are at fault, because without respectful dialogue, an attempt to come to understanding, especially with people who are very, very important to us in our lives, we're making the divide bigger. How many of you know somebody who has had to part ways with a brother or sister or parent or cousin because their beliefs had gotten so extreme it was intolerable. Not only in my own family, I've heard of other people, friends who that's happened to. How can we effectively approach a confrontation as big as that? When you find yourself in the midst of the battle, pause, deep breath, becoming mindful of your reaction, your emotional state. Just notice it. It's that mindfulness when you become the observer of your emotional state. Your emotions do not need to run you. Notice them and let them pass by. I always say, water off a duck's back. Just breathe them out on the out breath. You're always in control. And notice if you just filed that person into one of those categories unconsciously. Insert name calling here. And take the attitude, I don't know what I don't know, which allows you to step out of an ego response. It is actually possible that I don't know everything, that maybe everything isn't entirely known yet in the universe. And you can try calmly asking your friend clarification questions. Ask them why do they believe that way, and ask them to explain it again in different words. As my friend Kimberly likes to say, the president of our board, very wise. Can you explain that again in different words? And then also minus the angry state. You're now at a more balanced state when you're questioning. And I learned from my brother, the lawyer, to repeat back to them what they've just said so that the person feels heard and understood and gotten. Respect. Treat other people how you want to be treated, right? Golden rule. And step away from looking for a win or lose result. This is not a debate with a winner or loser. Look for commonality in your points of view. I see you're very passionate about this issue. Can you tell me why? And begin to put more emphasis on the things that unite you. For example, we both really care about humankind and keeping people healthy and safe. There may come a point in this contentious conversation when you find yourself needing to say, I value our relationship more than I care about this issue. I truly wouldn't want to lose you. And the phrase, which sometimes is the last straw, I simply have a different point than you do on this. There's no judgment in this. Maybe we just need to agree to disagree. It's okay. I don't really have all the answers. And the bottom line is truly, time is too short. Life is too short. We can choose to dedicate our time to this confrontation, or we can dedicate our time to things that allow us an easy flow toward joy and a sense of purpose. In conclusion, we all have a lot to gain by understanding differing opinions without the narrow preconceptions that unfairly define and categorize each other. Through questioning and answering, we learn more about ourselves and what unconscious beliefs are running every choice we make. And that's our job in this lifetime, right? We're constantly growing spiritually. So let's work toward having the openness and adaptability of flowing water rather than getting stuck in the swamp. The fluidity of moving water takes us ever forward toward common ground where we can find that field that unites us. Thank you.